I became a teacher by accident, but again, it was a really strong inspiration. I was profoundly shy to the degree that I really couldn't stand in front of a classroom. So the first time that I was asked to do that, I just couldn't do it. I basically just ran out of the classroom, and I ran down the street in Paisley, and it started to rain. So I had to go somewhere. So I went into the Abbey in Paisley, and I had never prayed before, but when you're, in a fairly desperate situation, it comes quite naturally. So I went to the front row of the Abbey, and I just said, please help me, please help me. And I had this really amazing experience, which was that the sunlight came. Suddenly, it must have stopped raining, I guess, but I'm trying to think of a logical explanation. But the sunlight started pouring through this rose window, and it literally sort of poured into my head. It's as if there was an opening in my head, and it just poured in, and I just felt absolutely filled with confidence. And I walked back to the school, and I walked back into the classroom, and I said, oh, I'm so sorry, I had to rush out. I had a bit of dust in my contact lens, but I'll take the class. And from then on, that was really my service, was to be a teacher. But I don't think I was a particularly great teacher, and because I had to work within the system of schools. So what happened when I came to Findhorn, there was a healing conference in 2004, and I was deeply inspired by a presentation called Healing the Soul of Education. And from then on, I went into schools in a really, really different way, to be the presence of love in that school, in that classroom, with that child. Didn't matter what the framework was, that's what I could do. And I think it was recognised by some of the head teachers that I worked with that I was doing something different. And they would come and ask me, what are you doing? You're not just a teacher, what's going on here? And some of them were very receptive to working slightly differently. So then I started setting up these education conferences with John Wilmot and Robin Shohet, and we did a series called the Northern Lights Conferences, which were never a huge success and never made a particular, making money has not really been my forte, but people that did come, had an experience, and children that came had an experience. So that's been a tiny, tiny thing that's been my service within my mainstream professional life. And also it's brought me so much joy. I've really, really enjoyed myself. I've really had a lot of fun. So that's been an important part of my working life. Yeah. One of the things that I really love is being with young people as a teacher or as a facilitator. And I don't feel old. I feel youngish, and I think it's because I'm taking in, this youthful energy of young people. And I also really enjoy being with groups. I seem to come to life in a group that I wouldn't perhaps if I was solitary for too long. So of course there's a name for this. I'm an extreme extrovert, and I get a lot of energy from a group that's doing something creative, chattering, dancing. But my big thing is dinner parties. If I'm sitting around a dinner table with people, I try not to hog the limelight. And when I succeed in not hogging the limelight and everybody else is joining in, there's something that happens in a group conversation with people where we learn so much from each other. We learn diverse viewpoints and tidbits of information that you could call that gossip, but it's actually really useful to, oh, I didn't know that about so and so, I'll go and figure that out, or I'll help, or whatever. So that kind of social dimension is my sweet spot, without doubt. I really love being in educational groups that are being facilitated in a very, very lively way. And I like being the facilitator as well. I'd say that's probably my strength. I've probably come to life as a facilitator. And I think that's where my artistry is as well. So I used to paint and sculpt and all of those things. And one day I just thought, whoa, this is just stuff and it's just collecting dust. I'm going to be an artist. but I'm going to be an artist of experience, an artist of life, so to speak. And so that's really how my creative channel is creating experience with people. That's why I love being a substitute teacher, because I don't have a curriculum to deliver. I just enter the room and kind of sense what's going on and ask a couple of questions and sort of whip something up, a bit like a chef that's not using a recipe. So that's my particular strength. So I think my real strength is being spontaneous, being enthusiastic, gathering people together and allowing something to emerge. That's definitely my favourite thing in the world. And it's probably what I'm best at. And to be perfectly honest, I'm really rubbish at just about everything else. I'm really serious. What I'm really good at is asking for help, asking other people to come and share their expertise with me. To be honest, I'm not part of anybody's organisations, really. I take on a role as an ambassador because it's a really good fit. It's always in a voluntary capacity, but it always serves me because it always leads to other things. So I'm an ambassador for the Global Eco-Village Network, and I love what the training as an ambassador has helped me to learn about my particular place in the world, how I can be open to serve and love in that context. But also I love the Holistic Centres Network, and I started to go to that network every year. Ironically, I was asked to go when that network was having their gathering in Findhorn. I can't remember when it was now, it might have been 2012, and I was asked to go as an ambassador for Kalikalos, the Greek centre that I'd then become very heavily involved in. And as soon as I entered the room that was full of holistic centre leaders from all over the world, I just knew I was with my tribe. It was wildly exciting for me, because then I was with people that I understood and who understood me. I wasn't an outlier anymore. It was a really wonderful experience of gathering in like-minded people. And so then I started to go to that gathering every single year, and that took me to Esalen, to Omega, to Hollyhock, to Quebec, and then latterly, of course, to China. And then I hosted it myself with my brother at Kalikalos. So I think, it's obvious from what I'm telling you now that I'm a natural networker, but I didn't know I was. I was a very, very shy child. And this life that's come to me through this relatively new experience of just listening into whatever the inspiration is, that wasn't the trajectory that I was on at all. And I think I've had this fantastic life, so I want to give some comfort to people that feel they haven't got there yet, is I was a really, really late developer. This didn't start to happen until I was in my 40s. And for the time before, I always felt really sad and lost and lonely because I knew I wasn't in the right life. It was quite devastating. I was suicidal and I felt really low because I thought I'd made a terrible mess of my life and I couldn't figure out how to get the right track. And also for a very long time I felt I wasn't useful at all, and I had a really strong image that I explained to somebody one day. I said, I feel like a terracotta warrior. I feel that I'm buried and I'm of no use to anything or anybody right now, but my feeling is that one day there'll be an excavation and I'll come into the light. And it's, that's a really great metaphor because that's exactly what happened. And by the time that I was in the right place at the right time, I'd built up a skill set within my life as a teacher in mainstream that really helped the shift to become a facilitator. So it's really interesting. For the time that I was apparently buried, it was actually a really, really useful time, in as much as it's useful for a seed or a plant to be under the soil. Yeah, there is something. I think I'm in a really lovely part of my life where when I look back, I'm really happy with everything that's arisen and how it's been dealt with. So there's absolutely no regret. And now I feel as if I'm on a platform now where things are different. And I went to meditate in the sanctuary at Findhorn in January, but it was locked, so I couldn't go in there. And a friend saw me and said, oh, there's another place that you can meditate, come with me. And he took me just to the other side of the garden where there was a kind of garden shed with windows. And he said, you can meditate here. So I thought, great. So I walked in there and there was a candle and a lovely poem. And then I sat down and looked out of the window and I could see the same garden that I'd seen for all of these years, but from a completely different perspective for the very first time. And not only that, but it was January, you know, everything was dead. Oh, it was just straw there. And I had this really strong insight that this represented my life now, that actually everything was dead. Everything's finished. Everything that I was doing, essentially, it's finished. I'm moving now to a different space. I don't know what's going to arise in it. And also, I'm seeing everything from a completely different perspective. And although I'm 61 years old, what I felt in that moment was that I'm a 1-year-old. I felt absolutely fresh and unencumbered by any sort of history or dogma. And the strange thing is that I now have a granddaughter, actually, beautiful Lily. And she was born, this is her first year of life as well. And I thought, wow, this is how it is for Lily as well. She's not encumbered by historical events, the fallout of which, or you know, social media opinions, or religious dogma. That's the way I feel. I feel really clean, and I feel newborn, and I'm kind of ready to roll, ready to rock and roll with this next wildly exciting blank space that's emerged now.